Lofgren, and I want to thank all my colleagues and the press for joining us here today as we introduce the Redistricting Reform Act. As you know, I've been introducing this legislation since 2005, but I think it's relevant now more than ever. President Trump has unleashed a redistricting war across the country, calling up Republican-controlled states and demanding that they rig their maps. He called up the governor of Texas and said, "Find me 5 seats." And Texas Republicans did that. He called up the folks in Missouri, Indiana, and Florida, and it looks like those states may also revise their maps as he has directed. Why is he doing this? Because of his unpopular policies stripping health care from millions of people. He knows that rigging the redistricting process is probably the only way his party doesn't lose control of Congress in next year's midterm elections. The Redistricting Reform Act would end the nationwide redistricting war by prohibiting mid-decade redistricting and ensuring that every state adopts independent redistricting that uses uniform, fair redistricting criteria. Now, when Democrats controlled the House, we included independent redistricting in our big H.R. 1 ethics reform bill, and it passed the House, but was unfortunately killed by Republicans in the Senate. Now, it can't just be one side that agrees to stop gerrymandering. It needs to be both. And for the sake of our democracy, we shouldn't continue down this path. I would welcome the support of my Republican colleagues from California on this legislation. When we passed this bill through the House in 2021, we did not receive a single vote from the Republicans. I hope that they will change this time around, since so many of them seem to have expressed support for a nonpartisan redistricting process now that their seats may be at risk. I want to thank Deborah Ross from North Carolina, Mark Vesey from Texas, for their support of the bill because they have experienced the ills of partisan gerrymandering in their own states. Both of their states have been horrendously gerrymandered to disenfranchise voters. And I want to thank Senator Alex Padilla for leading in the Senate companion bill. He's a former Secretary of State of California, an expert on election law, and I'll turn it over to him, Senator Padilla, for a few remarks.
Thank you. Thank you, Representative Lofgren. This is not a new fight for you. You've been a champion on this for many, many years. To level the playing field and a fair redistricting process for the entire country, not just California. But we're here today because we are at a dangerous moment for our democracy. We see MAGA Republicans in state houses across the nation literally saying, "Yes, Mr. Trump, whatever you want," starting with his demands for more Republican seats in the state of Texas. But when he spoke to the camera about Texas, he literally said, we are entitled to 5 more seats. Not that they want to compete for 5 more seats, that they're entitled to 5 more seats, and don't stop there. Listen to what he says, because he means it. What we know is that Republicans are afraid to run on their record. They're jacking up health care premiums for working families. Their failed tariff wars is increasing costs on everything from groceries to housing and more. And Republicans are scrambling to cover up the president's involvement with Jeffrey Epstein. It's a formula to lose power in the midterm elections, and instead of changing their ways, they've decided to change the rules. So what started in Texas has spread, predictably, to Missouri and Indiana, Florida, and beyond. It's become a race to the bottom to impress Donald Trump, who's personally issuing these marching orders from the White House. From the White House to legislators in state houses across the country to rig the maps. And yes, in response, California has had no choice but to gear up for this fight. But as a proud senator from the state of California, I can tell you I know there is a better way forward. We believe in a better way forward. And so today we're offering Republicans this off-ramp. Let's come together behind the Redistricting Reform Act of 2025, a common sense solution to the partisan power grabs that we're witnessing. The measure would ban mid-decade redistricting immediately, because no one should be able to rewrite the rules in the middle of the cycle. And it would return to nonpartisan, independent commissions drawing the lines. Because as we've said before, we'll say again, it should be voters choosing the representatives, not the other way around. Now, we're more than happy to meet Republicans on a level playing field every election, and competing on ideas and policies and proposed solutions, not competing on who can rig the rules more than the other. Competing on ideas is what's best for democracy. Competing on ideas is what's best for the people. And so it's an urgent call for our colleagues, both Republican and Democrat, to join us in passing this bill. But if Republicans refuse, let's also be clear, California will not stand down. California will continue to stand up as Republicans, if Republicans choose to continue to make a mockery of democracy. California is prepared to respond. Thank you, Representative Lofgren, and if I may introduce my colleague and partner in the Senate, Senator Adam Schiff.
Thank you, Alex. I am so grateful to be here with Ranking Member Lofgren, Senator Padilla, Speaker Pelosi, House leadership, and so many of our colleagues in the House from California and across the country. Right now, Republican lawmakers are terrified of facing voters at the polls for policies they have written that are deeply injurious to the American people and for all of their broken promises. Their promises to lower prices, broken, to help with rising costs, broken, to protect American families in peril, broken. Instead, what this administration has done is pass a legislative agenda that is so toxic, so harmful to the American people, that families across America are crying out for relief from these rising costs. We see tariffs driving up the price of groceries, everyday goods, appliances, cars, school supplies. We see hospitals and clinics laying off staff or closing altogether, and families facing health insurance premium increases of 50%, 75% or more. We see businesses struggling to stay afloat and cutting workers as economic uncertainty tightens its grip. Republicans are seeing this. They're hearing it at town halls. They're reading it in emails and text messages from their constituents, and they are panicking. And why do we know this? Because rather than stand up to the president or even try to defend their big ugly bill, they're making a desperate move. Rather than try to win the race in the midterms, they're trying to rig the game. They're trying to take away the American people's best way to express their disgust at this hateful agenda, the access to a fair election next year, one where politicians haven't already decided the outcome. When we ran the House, we passed the most historic voting reform package in a generation and said in a unified voice that we want to ban gerrymandering all across the country once and for all. Today we are here to say that again. There should be no ambiguity. We want to end partisan gerrymandering. We want to adopt nonpartisan independent redistricting commissions like we have done in California. But we are not letting Republicans' efforts to rig the next election go unanswered. And we are making it crystal clear for everyone watching here today and back home that we will fight this. Democrats are the party of free, nonpartisan, and unbiased elections, ones where people pick their representatives and not the other way around. Republicans have poked the bear in California, and we are not backing down. Thank you. It gives me great pleasure now to to introduce House Democratic Whip Catherine Clark.
Thank you so much, Senator. I am so honored to be here with these fighters for democracy, and so grateful to my partners in California for all they are doing to protect the vote. So you may call us traditionalists, but we have this idea that when you are elected to office, you should prioritize the people who sent you there. The Republicans have been really clear about who they are prioritizing in their office. They've taken health care from 15 million people. They've taken food from 16 million children. They've cut Medicare by $500 billion. And to do what? To take that money and give it in tax cuts to billionaires. Republicans know this isn't what people voted for. They know they have a losing message. They know their big, ugly law is a liability and is causing pain to American families. And they know they are going to pay a political price for this. And that is why they have embarked on this desperate effort to keep the House by creating new partisan districts. They aren't just trying to steal an election, they are stealing the right of everyday people in our communities and theirs, to be heard. They are stealing their right to select leaders who will prioritize their families. Zoe Lofgren's bill will put the power back with the people. It enshrines the idea that voters choose their representatives, not the other way around. And it ensures that we will never be subjected to the blatant election rigging that we are seeing this year. Republicans are welcome to run on their record of disastrous cuts and higher costs. What we won't let them do is run away with our transparency, accountability, and our very democracy. And I am so pleased to be joined in this fight from another one of our amazing California members, my partner in House leadership and friend, House Democratic Caucus Chair, Pete Aguilar.
Thank you, Whip Clark. I want to thank Ranking Member Lofgren, my colleagues from California, Texas, North Carolina, and of course, Speaker Emerita Pelosi and our Senators Padilla and Schiff. It's an honor to be with you. We know what happened this summer when Republicans, led by Donald Trump, passed their big ugly law. They knew that this would be unpopular with the American people. And so they knew that they had to do everything they can to keep the House. So they set out to rig the 2026 election, calling up Governor Abbott in Texas, asking him for favors, calling up other governors and asking them the same, just like he called up the Secretary of State in Georgia in 2020 about that election. Now other Republican states are stepping up to follow Texas's lead, setting off this redistricting war. Well, House Democrats were not going to sit by and just watch Donald Trump attempt to steal another election. And so California Democrats are taking action to level the playing field. But make no mistake, we do not believe this path forward is sustainable and wholeheartedly believe in the independent redistricting commissions like the one in California are a gold standard for our country. Red, blue, and purple states have all made this system work, but it only works if we participate. And that is what exactly that the Redistricting Reform Act does. If adopted, this legislation would ban mid-decade redistricting and require independent redistricting commissions in every state. This would create more competitive elections and therefore more cooperation and bipartisanship in Congress. I urge my Republican colleagues to join us in this effort and to help return power back to the American people. Someone who has led in this area and has seen the dangers of partisan redistricting is our colleague from North Carolina, Representative Deborah Ross.
Well, thank you very much, Pete, and I am proud to stand with my colleagues from California and Texas because, boy, has North Carolina seen the dangers of partisan gerrymandering. I'd also like to thank Congresswoman Lofgren and Veazey and Senator Padilla for leading this legislation and for the right to protect every American to choose their elected representatives. Across the country, we're seeing an arms race to gerrymander maps and enshrine power in the hands of a few politicians, regardless of the will of the people. And North Carolina is one of the main reasons why the Democrats do not control the House today. It is because of partisan gerrymandering. Now, my state is as purple as they come. We elected 2 Democrats as governor while also electing Donald Trump as president. And as recently as 2022, we had fair maps that resulted in an evenly split congressional delegation. But North Carolina Republicans wanted more power. So they cracked and packed our districts into the current configuration of 10 Republicans and 4 Democrats. Everyone, from electoral experts to everyday Americans, know that voters should be free to choose their representatives and not the other way around. That's why we're introducing the Redistricting Reform Act, to make sure that our elected officials truly represent the people. Our title is representative, after all. For far, far too long, America has been denied the promise of representation by and for the people. In the past, it was the insidious poll taxes, literacy tests, and threats of violence, which we sadly are seeing again today. Armed with precise computer-drawn maps, one of the principal threats to our democracy is entrenched politicians who'd rather see their party triumph than our democracy thrive. And that's why this legislation is going to protect our democracy and the people's right to representative government, ensuring that politicians can't gerrymander their way to permanently hold on power. When I was a state House representative and Tom Tillis was the Speaker of the House, he allowed a bipartisan redistricting bill to go through the House of Representatives. It was stopped by the man who continues to be the Senator pro tem of the North Carolina Senate, Phil Berger. It's time for him to go. I am now happy to turn this over to the amazing representative for Southern California, Julia Brownlee.
Thank you. Well, good afternoon. So let's be clear. Partisan gerrymandering is one of the greatest threats to our democracy today. It silences voters, fractures communities, and stacks the deck for those politicians who care more about power than people. My constituents know this very well. The congressional seat that I represent, which encompasses most of Ventura County in Southern California, was carved up, split into 3 or 4 different congressional districts at one point. Voters didn't have one clear voice in Washington. They were divided, ignored, and left with one sleepy election after another. That changed when Californians created the Citizens Redistricting Commission. Independent, citizen-led redistricting put communities back together. It made our elections more fair. It gave voters the ability to hold their elected representatives more accountable to them. In fact, I would not be here as the first Democrat to represent Ventura County in 70 years if it wasn't for that reform. When I came to Congress, My first priority was to join Congresswoman Zoe Lofgren in authoring the Redistricting Reform Act to ensure every state follows California's example and puts the power back where it belongs with the people. Because make no mistake, free and fair elections are not automatic. They depend on us standing up for core democratic values. And right now, we are watching Republican-controlled states, Texas, North Carolina, Missouri, redraw maps to entrench their power and undermine the will of the voters. The Redistricting Reform Act gives every member of Congress the opportunity to stop this madness, a chance to prove they care about fairness and accountability more than Donald Trump's whims. If they refuse, the American people will see the truth. That is, Republicans who are standing in the way of free and fair elections. We will not sit idly by while our democracy is rigged. We will fight back. But today, my Republican colleagues have a choice: to join us in ending partisan gerrymandering once and for all, or be remembered for undermining the very foundation of our democracy. And so it's my great pleasure now to introduce Marina Jenkins, the Executive Director of the National Democratic Redistricting Committee.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much. Hello. Thank you, Senator Padilla and Representative Lofgren, for introducing this vital legislation. And thank you to every tireless advocate across the country, from every corner of every community, who continues the fight to protect, preserve, and improve our democracy. As said, I'm Marina Jenkins, Executive Director of the National Democratic Redistricting Committee, and we're so proud to be here today. We stand together today concerned, yes, because our system of government is under threat, but also ever more committed to the work of paving a stronger path forward. Right now, in states across the country, a concerted effort is underway by the Republican Party to lock in their own power in order to advance their own agenda, all without the consent of the American people. We know what's at stake. When representatives choose their voters instead of voters choosing their representatives, voices are silenced, competition is stymied, and policy decisions are divorced from constituents' needs. When the legitimacy of our elections is corroded and cynicism takes over, democracy itself is diminished. The challenge before us right now, Trump's demand that Republican-controlled states engage in mid-decade gerrymandering so that the GOP can illegitimately retain control of the House, notwithstanding what the American people want, is very real. And let's be clear, a sitting president making this kind of demand is not only absolutely unprecedented, but it is also incredibly harmful. We know far too well how extreme partisan and racial gerrymandering can divide communities, undermine equal representation, and pave the way for special interests to be prioritized over everyday Americans. We have seen the damage it does to faith in our institutions, to confidence in our elections, and to the very idea that our representative government actually answers to the people. Americans want to be able to choose accountable representatives in fair and competitive elections. That is why the Redistricting Reform Act is so important. It would end the practice of partisan gerrymandering. It would ban mid-decade redistricting schemes, the kind like the one we're living through now that are used to grab power when the public isn't looking. And it would require states to use truly independent commissions that would result in more competitive elections. And it would give citizens the right to go to court to enforce these protections, because rights without remedies are no rights at all. The law would not apply to just one party or just a few states. It won't lift only some groups up or give special privileges to a select few. This law would provide a national framework designed to enforce a just system equally across the board. Because the simple reality is that voters should choose their representatives and not the other way around. This principle encapsulates the foundational promise of an inclusive representative democracy that we all deserve. Voters across the country have expressed again and again that they want an end to gerrymandering. They want fair maps, they want accountability, they want a true democracy that is free, fair, open, and accountable. and they certainly want an end to the manufactured redistricting crisis that Trump has set off. That is what the Redistricting Reform Act would deliver. So let's make the system genuinely fair. Let's remove the ability to tamper with the playing field, not to protect any one party, but to protect our democracy and the people it is designed to serve. Now I'm happy to introduce Virginia Solomon of the Common Cause.
Good afternoon, everyone. First, I want to just begin with some gratitude. I want to thank Senator Padilla and Representative Lofgren for their leadership in introducing and championing the Redistricting Reform Act of 2025. You know, it takes courage, quite frankly, to put country over party and democracy over self-interest. And this legislation actually does that because it doesn't allow them to select their voters. It actually requires them to go through a fair process. Again, my name is Virginia K. Solomon. I am the president and CEO of Common Cause, and our organization is the lobbying group for the people of this country. We have membership in every congressional district in the United States. And Common Cause has proudly led redistricting efforts throughout the country for decades. We fought for fair maps all the way up to the Supreme Court. If you remember the case Russo v. Common Cause in North Carolina, that was us. We brought independent redistricting commission to California and to states throughout the country, and that really has been the gold standard for redistricting. And we're here today to continue the growing movement for fair maps, fair elections, and fair representation. But it means we need to tell the truth. And the reality is that for far too long, a lot of politicians have been rigging the game in favor of themselves or their parties. They've carved up communities, drawn maps in back rooms, and used their power to protect themselves, not the people they were elected to serve. Gerrymandering has robbed voters of their voices time and time again, and it has poisoned trust in our democracy. And that stops here and now with this legislation. And so we hope that our Republican members of Congress will also join in supporting this legislation. Not only are we proud to stand by this because it will put the power in the hands of the people, but the best part of it is that the American people are actually with us. We released a new poll last week, and that made it very crystal clear for us. 84% of voters say fair district lines are vital to the health of our democracy. That's not a margin, that is a mandate. 77% want independent commissions to draw maps. Voters don't trust politicians to grade their own homework. 78% say community interests, not political advantage, should come first because people want their neighborhoods, their towns, their voices to matter, not just those of party insiders. And 60% reject mid-decade redistricting because voters see this for what it is, a power grab. And these aren't partisan talking points. They're the American people directly from this poll speaking loud and clear. From Texas to California, from Illinois to Florida, Democrats, Republicans, independents, across the board, voters want fairness, transparency, and accountability. Because let's be clear, gerrymandering is nothing more than voter suppression with a different name. It silences voices, it fractures communities, it rigs elections before a single ballot is even cast. And the Redistricting Reform Act of 2025 is how we fix it. So today we are calling on Congress to pass this bill for every voter whose voice will be left out. The people are ready, we are united, and we are watching. Thank you. And now I am introducing Representative Mark Vesey of Texas.
Good afternoon. How are y'all doing? I'm Mark Vesey from Texas. I represent the 33rd Congressional District, which includes Dallas and Fort Worth. And I want to be clear about something. I want to be clear about why we are here. The reason why we are here is because Donald Trump and Republicans are scared. Donald Trump and Republicans are afraid and scared of the growing number of Black and Latino and Asian citizens in the state of Texas. Donald Trump and his Republican allies, they are afraid of the damage that they are about to cause on this country with the passage of their big ugly bill. And Donald Trump and his Republican people know that the American public are against their billionaire agenda that they are trying to impose on this country. And they are afraid that the American people will take that displeasure straight to the ballot box. That is why Donald Trump ordered Republican governors across legislatures and across the country to silence Black and brown voices in states like mine, which is Texas. And spineless governors all over the South and other places are bowing to this wannabe dictators instead of standing up for their constituencies that are rejecting mid-decade redistricting. And I want you to make no mistake about it. The reason, again, why they are scared is because bills are going up, inflation is going up, unemployment is going up, housing is going up, food prices are going up, all while Republicans are trying to take away people's health care. That is a recipe for electoral disaster. And that is why Republicans are discriminating against Black and brown voters and exhibiting this blatant power grab that is unconstitutional, because they are afraid that their agenda is unpopular. They know they cannot win on policy, so they are rigging the election before a single vote is even cast. These schemes are racist. These schemes are unconstitutional. And as was pointed out by my colleague from North Carolina, they are Jim Crow-like, and they take us back to an era that we don't want to return to in this country. Let me just give you some facts on Texas really quickly. If you go back and you look at redistricting in 2020, 2021, after the 20 numbers came out, almost all of the growth in the state of Texas was because of Latino, Black, and Asian growth. That is why we picked up the additional seats that we did. That's why we picked up the additional 4 seats that we did the decade before. But now, if you look at what's happened, Latino voters statewide now have 1/4 of the power that white voters do. It's blatantly racist. It's blatantly intentional what they're trying to do in this discrimination. And we are not going to quietly let Republicans drag us back to pre-1960s Voting Rights Act levels. We are absolutely not going to allow that to happen. We are going to fight back. And so that is why I am so proud to stand here today with my colleague from California, Zoe Lofgren, and pushing the Reform Act, because we want to guarantee nationwide nonpartisan redistricting where everybody, I don't care what race you are, I don't care what state, I don't care who's in power, we want everybody to play by the same rules. Period. End of story. We want to make sure that every voice, even voices that may not agree with me, we want to make sure that every voice across this great land is heard. And we are not going to allow Donald Trump and Republicans to play these games and take this country back again to a place where it was before the Voting Rights Act was passed in this country. We are simply not going to allow it to happen. And so with that, I want to introduce to the podium another strong warrior when it comes to protecting voting rights in this country, from California's 12th Congressional District, Congresswoman Lateefah Simon.
Thank you, sir. Thank you all. And I want to thank our courageous leader, Zoe Lofgren, for bringing us all here today. And of course, Senator Padilla. Congresswoman Lofgren has been just a steadfast leader for democracy for decades. And thank you so much for pushing this opportunity forward for the Democrats and the Republicans to honor our democracy. I think we need to actually be very, very clear. In this moment, Trump and Republicans have already stolen the voice voters in Texas. They're stealing the voices of voters in Missouri, and we cannot sit with our arms folded and let the lapse in democracy win. In California, we are fighting back, and this November, voters will have the opportunity to move forward Prop 50 to stand up for fairness and to protect the principles of equal representation. But, in the long term, we all know that we need to have fairness in districts in all 50 states. We need a nationwide system, a promise of independent redistricting, so that Republican, unfair, and undemocratic attempts to redistrict will never happen again. That is why I am so proud. I am so proud to stand here with my colleagues and support the Redistricting Reform Act, because we have to fight literally for the woman right now, the mom that is sitting in a children's hospital waiting room, hoping that her daughter, who is fighting for her life with second stage cancer, can continue in her clinical trial as this administration continues to cut funding from NIH. We have to fight for the researchers who are this close to curing sickle cell research, but again, our administration is stalling research funding. With this opportunity, what we will do is restore the voices for all Americans. We cannot afford to go back to a 1950s America where voters don't have the opportunity to lift their voices and to select their leaders. Again, I want to thank you, Zoe, for your leadership, and we can do the right thing. Thank you all so much.
We have Luz.
She took off.
I'm
right after.
Jimmy Panetta.
Great.
Mike.
Good. Thank you, and please excuse the lack of jacket, but I think all of us understand. Let me express my appreciation to Zoe Lofgren for leading this charge, as she does on so many issues. And let me just kind of mention one thing. Look, when our founders formulated this country, they did everything they could to get away from one-person rule. But what we're seeing right now is one person ruling out of the White House by diktat. And what that's leading to and causing is what we're experiencing today as a democracy: corruption, incompetence, cuts to care, and high costs. Now, these policies that are coming out of the White House are tremendously unpopular, and the president understands that. So it's exactly why the president leaned in to the states that have been mentioned today and basically leaned in to the governors and the legislatures and the legislators who bent the knee to him, who basically gerrymandered. And they said, we're going to have politicians pick the voters. Well, we in California are here today to tell you that we don't do that. We believe in the Independent Redistricting Commission. We believe in what the voters are going to be having an opportunity to do this November. We believe that the voters should be picking their representatives. Not just in California. We think the entire country should live up to those democratic ideals. That is why we are here today, to promote, to support, and to put forward the Redistricting Reform Act, a bill led by Congresswoman Lofgren in the House, Alex Padilla in the Senate, and all of us who believe in our democratic values. A bill that will support, sustain independent redistricting commissions, and it is a bill how we strengthen our democracy. For it is the Redistricting Reform Act that will give back the values, the ideals that our founding fathers wanted for the people to pick their representation. Thank you. And my honor to introduce to you the amazing congressman from Southern California, Brad Sherman.
Hello, I'm Brad Sherman from California's best named city, Sherman Oaks. Well, before I came to Congress, I served on the board of California Common Cause. And I saw Common Cause fight the battle that we're fighting here today. When I got here, Zoe had her bill, which you have handled how many different Congresses? More times than I can count, long before a bunch of cameras would be here to talk about it. And now it's more critical than ever, because we're told, we see an administration that is becoming less popular, practicing the adage, if you can't beat 'em, cheat 'em. We also see a city that's so divided that it's all, how can we get something for our side, not how can we have a system that works in a fair manner for every American. And this legislation isn't just important to redistricting. It would be the first step this year, the first step for a long time, to move toward fairness and away from extreme partisanship, where you seek a partisan advantage in this state or that state. We need to prohibit mid-decade redistricting, require an independent commission that has worked so well in California, have criteria, including the Voting Rights Act, of course, mandate transparency. And I know that what's going on in California is of note. I'll simply point out that Common Cause led the battle for the California Redistricting Commission, recently has issued its criteria for when you should do redistricting in this mid-decade, and their points were proportionality, public participation, and that is exactly what we're seeing in California. But if Texas and other states weren't doing it, we wouldn't be proportional to anything else. So I hope it's not too late to pull the plug on what's going on in so many states. But if that doesn't happen, California will have to respond.
Well, thank you very much. We have I know it's very warm out here, but we have time for a question or two if people have them. Yes. Not yet. As I noted in my opening remarks, when we had the majority and we had independent redistricting, not a single Republican voted for it. Now, some Republicans in California can see a more challenging environment in their own districts, and they are talking a different game. We would welcome their support, and we'll wait and see.
Yeah, have you reached out to like Kevin Kiley or any others?
No, but we will. Okay. Yes. Yes. Well, when Trump called the Texas governor, we thought that was highly improper to take 5 seats. And our first reaction was, could we match that in California so that they would stop? I mean, we like our commission. We support our commission. We thought, well, we'll say we can do this and maybe they'll stop. Instead of stopping, they doubled down. And here's the question that we faced. In the face of Trump trying to prevent people from overturning these wrong-headed policies, we can do nothing or we can do something. And we decided we should do something. And so we prepared a map that would obviate what the Republicans are doing in Texas, but with a couple of caveats. First, it has to go to the voters. It's not just up to us. The voters of California have to decide their fate because there's tremendous damage that has been done to California by the Republican Congress and by Trump. Millions of Californians are losing their health care. Children in schools are not getting lunch. The damage is severe. Hospitals, it's estimated that 17 hospitals in California in rural areas will simply close the door. So we're putting that question to the voters of California. The second criteria was we want to be consistent with the Voting Rights Act. And we solicited experts who told us not only did the proposed map that the voters will decide on comply with the Voting Rights Act, it was actually a better Voting Rights Act map than the commission drew. And finally, temporary. This is an emergency response to an emergency that Trump created. It goes away after the next census, and the commission will go back to doing its own map drawing as we all want. Thank you very much.